All right, we're gonna try doing this again. All right, I'm going to attempt to explain sulfation using Lego Pokemon here. And again, this is trying to simplify detoxification. I lost Charmy. Simplifying detoxification so that it's easier to understand and easier for you to understand why we do certain therapeutics the way that we do. Okay, again, this is not a perfect analogy because Legos don't work the way that biochemistry does, but pretend this is the thing that you want to get rid of through the sulfation process, right? And with sulfation, you need sulfate. You need like a PAPS donor as a cofactor to be able to like get rid of this thing. So you conjugate this through sulfation, right? And then this can get carried out through your intestines, and then you've gotten rid of it. Okay, so one of the major hiccups with sulfation is the ability to be able to make this PAPS cofactor. And pretend that this is sulfate. You need sulfate to be able to create PAPS. And I'm gonna just, okay, pretend that, actually, this is not a great, pretend this is the thing that you're getting rid of, and this thing is PAPS, okay? So this makes more sense. So this thing is a thing that has come, like, the bare Ivysaur is the thing that has come through phase 1 detoxification, and now you need to attach the PAPS to it through sulfation so that it can be gotten rid of in your intestines. Now this PAPS is very important for sulfation, and it requires sulfate. So PAPS, sulfate, the sulfate is needed in the intestines, but guess who else really likes sulfate? So there's some gut bacteria, especially gut bacteria that are the gut bacteria that can predispose you to hydrogen sulfide SIBO. They will see this sulfate, be like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm going to put it right here. And it actually reduces this, oh my gosh, it actually reduces this sulfate into sulfide so that you can't use it for PAPS unless you convert this back into sulfate. So it's being converted into sulfide by the hydrogen sulfide bacteria. And now you need to this analogy is not overlapping. Actually, let me get a different thing. Okay, now you need to have your sulfate oxidase enzyme come in and like break this back off so that you have sulfate again to be able to use on your PAPS, okay? And so this enzyme requires molybdenum. And this enzyme, when it catalyzes this reaction, trying to break sulfide back into sulfate, it will use up the molybdenum. So if you have a molybdenum deficiency, then this enzyme can't work to take this sulfide and turn it back into sulfate. And what's also going on is you have so many of these guys that as soon as you turn it back into sulfate, another one sweeps in and is like, Jinx, I got this one. This one is sulfide now. I've taken it away before your body can use it to create PAPS. So this enzymes get really fatigued and very overloaded. And this is where you see that sulfur block. And now you have a bunch of sulfide, a bunch of these guys, a bunch of sulfide hanging out in your gut. Hydrogen sulfide is also quite neurotoxic to your small intestine. And it's also mitochondria toxic too. So this buildup of sulfide is eventually going to cause sulfur sensitivity because, again, if you have a sulfate coming in, then another one of these guys is going to just take it and turn it into sulfide. So this is the major problem in hydrogen sulfide SIBO and how it bottlenecks sulfide. And possibly the easiest way to try to break you out of this problem, so one of the gentler ways is if you supplement with molybdenum and just like try to help out this enzyme a little bit here, the sulfide oxidase enzyme, to keep doing this thankless job of converting sulfide into sulfate. You can do that and it will help to an extent, but if your population of hydrogen sulfide bacteria is so high, probably the one therapeutic that will have the most impact is to get rid of this population, or at least lower it while supporting this enzyme so that you can go ahead and make the PAPS in order to help that detoxification process. The way to do this is usually through like a kill phase, and there are 3 ways to treat SIBO. You can either use antibiotics, antimicrobial herbals, or a elemental diet if you want to directly affect this bacteria in a way that you kill it. Now, many times people with already like this detoxification bottlenecking going on, they don't really tolerate drugs or really strong herbals that well. So one way that you can get rid of this is you can fast to try to decrease bacterial loads. That's one way to do it. And then you try to support this enzyme to see if you can further support detoxification that way. But another way that you can really try to do this is try to bind up the hydrogen sulfide gas or hydrogen sulfide that's floating around in your intestines to decrease that exposure to your intestines to begin with. And there's one thing that we know does this very well, and it's actually bismuth. So that's the active component of Pepto-Bismol. I wouldn't recommend using Pepto-Bismol itself if you have high sensitivity to other chemicals, because Pepto-Bismol has other stuff in it. But bismuth subsalicylate is the active ingredient. If you can get that, that's worth a try. If you have salicylate sensitivity, which often is the case when you have like a gridlock with your sulfation, because sulfation, this PAPS process, also is the one that's in charge of detoxifying salicylates. So if you have salicylate buildup because you cannot detoxify, very often you will become intolerant to salicylates. So if this is the case, then maybe you want to try like a bismuth that's conjugated with something else, like a bismuth subnitrate or simple bismuth citrate as well. And this can get a little bit complicated based on your individual sensitivities, but if bismuth is tolerable, bismuth will bind hydrogen sulfide. So that's one thing. If bismuth doesn't work, then sometimes modified citrus pectin as a very weak binder can also help. And this might be the case where like you try to get this guy from multiple angles, where you're trying to both bind its production, trying to outcompete it, or trying to kill it off, both in little amounts, so that there's at least some sort of cumulative effect on decreasing the population of this guy. And maybe you try to support this enzyme a little bit more through supplementation of its cofactors like molybdenum and perhaps other B vitamins. You can also, from like a separate perspective, support other detoxification pathways like your glucuronidation, so that you can make sure that other detoxification pathways are at least open to a certain degree. That way there's not as much burden on sulfation. So I know this also got complicated. I really hope that this simplified things somewhat. In a way, basically the most important thing is the sulfite, the sulfate. Sulfate is important in sulfation, and sulfate continuously gets changed into sulfide because of the bacteria that may be present in your gut, and you have to change it back every time, and every time it is changed, it's like this tug-of-war between your enzymes and your gut bacteria, and you have to make sure that you're winning the tug-of-war is essentially what's happening with sulfation and the obstacles with sulfation. So hopefully this helped.